Hello YouTube, this is Boston Best 0407, and this video is going to be a bit of a discussion about something that's been on my mind for a while, and it's sort of come up recently in terms of its relevance, and which allowed me some time to really contemplate it and think about it. And this video is also going to become probably a basis for future videos I plan to do. And so it's going to be vaguely important, this video. And of course, I'm talking about this idea of utopia. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately because it seems that, I don't know if it's something that's become relatively recent or just been building for a while, but it seems that utopia, or the idea of utopia, has seemed to become something that really figures into a large amount of people's thinking these days. I find it a lot when I go on the internet, when I look around. I find that everybody seems to have a certain utopian view of something. There's always some belief somewhere that something has to be done in order to achieve this, or that life is getting better, and all these kind of things. And I find that there's nobody who's really critical of it. Even people who are on the right wing, for example, who are supposed to be critical of ideas like utopia and this sort of thing, do not really, I don't really see people criticizing it. That is, you find that there are right wing utopians as well, people who have almost the same ridiculous ideas. And really, it comes from this desire to perfect everything, to have to create purity, and to really turn everything into something angelic, and have a society, basically a heaven on earth. And it's a really a strange way of thinking, and I've never understood it. And the reason I've never understood it is because I just never understood the point of holding yourself to such a standard. Because if you look at first of all, if you look at everything around you in society and nature, you realize that everything is imperfect, that everything is essentially flawed and not entirely correct and right, or the way we would want it to be. And so, just from the outset, man isn't perfect. Life isn't perfect, and these are things you learn. You learn when you're young, and you're supposed to use it to mature and become an adult. But you find that people these days simply don't do this. I just don't see it. I don't see anybody discussing these sorts of things. Even to the extent that they do, I remember Arini did a video about maturity, which I thought was a really good video. Um, so you have people like that talking about these kind of things, but even like people on the right, they like a classic example of right wing utopianism is fascism, Nazism. That's a perfect example. Eugenics. I came across a right wing commentator somewhere recently who was actually saying eugenics might be a good idea, or that we should rethink our position on it. And I hear something like that, I'm just like, are you kidding me? And these are the kind of examples, trying to perfect nature, trying to work on nature to make it better. It's all utopian ideas. And it's really a dangerous way of thinking. And it really should not be something I should really have to explain. If we look at the 20th century, we can see categorically the failures of utopian ideas: Nazism, fascism, communism. Just any number. You could find where these three ideologies are probably a perfect example of where utopianism has totally, utterly failed. And utopianism is failing us now, because we live in a utopia. We thought we could have a great country here in the United States, and it worked for a while. But now we're seeing how this goes about. We're living in a Western utopia right now. Cultural Marxism is a utopia. The desire to create equality. These are all utopian ideas which are failing, and we can see how they fail because they're based on essentially flawed ideas, trying to make men and women equal, people of different cultures and backgrounds equal, trying to make all these people. It just doesn't work. It's just not the way things are. And the reason I believe we can't make utopia is because I don't believe we were really put on this earth, to achieve a utopia on earth. Neither were we put on this earth to achieve a utopia in the afterlife. Because ultimately, most utopian ideas, virtually every utopian idea, to one degree or another, comes from Christianity. And I think a lot of our ideas about the world are basically remnants of Christianity. And I simply really can't accept any of that. I don't believe that we were put on this earth to achieve a utopia either now or now or in the afterlife. I believe the reason why things are flawed and imperfect is because these are things that we have to overcome. I believe I'm essentially a Nietzschean at my core, and so I believe in the will to power. I believe in the will to self overcome hardship, and that's really the kind of values that we should be having. We should seek as individuals to overcome and to leap over the present. The reason things aren't perfect is because these are things that we can use to make us stronger. When we come across hardship, pain, frustration, it doesn't mean life is going to be easy or that achieving this is going to be an easy task. It's precisely the fact that it's not. We tend to live in a world where we believe that leisure and pleasure are good things, and the utopia would be a day where we could just kind of sit around and shoot the breeze about philosophy and kind of just drink fruit drinks and have a good time, sipping on our coladas and just staring at the water on the beach. But these are not realistic ideas. They're nice ideas. I mean, we all want leisure. We all want pleasure. I mean, these are nice ideas, but they are not the end all be all of human existence. It's just simply not the way things are. And the thing is, I believe utopia is immoral. Now, I don't like to moralize things. I've come to a point where I really distrust any attempt at moralizing anything. But if there's something that is incredibly immoral, if you want to use that, it's this idea of utopia. The reason it's immoral is because it's wrong, and because it's inherently destructive, and because it's basically founded on a delusion. The fact of the matter is, as a human being, when you go through hardship and frustration, because I remember at one time I was attracted to left-wing ideas for the kind of utopian quality. For example, I'm a musician. I play music, and I thought it'd be great to live in a world where I can just write songs. I'm basically a songwriter, probably even more than I am a musician as such. But I thought, great, I could be creative. I could write songs. I could have a good time. I could be creative and live my dreams. But a mature view on life, actually I should say, when you develop a mature view on life, you come to a point where you realize this is not necessarily going to happen, and you realize, you know what, I got to work through it. I got to work through my problems. I got to work through these things, and I got to handle life and believe that I can survive. That's a fundamental facet of human existence, I believe. I believe we exist to live, to procreate, and to die, and then to create a world in which the next generation can have, and then they build upon that, and so on and so forth. It's basically a cycle of life. If you go back to what people believed in pre-Christian times, people believed in this kind of stuff. It's the cycle of life. They follow the cycles of nature, life, death, and rebirth. These are all things you find in pagan mythology and pagan beliefs. An altogether different way of looking at the world than what we find in Christianity. Christianity is founded on the idea that we were good at one point and we failed somewhere. So with our fallen nature, we're in this kind of state of sin, and it's all really, when you get right down to it, crazy nonsense. It's really ridiculous ideas, and my belief system essentially is like the reverse of that. We're fallen. I don't have a problem with the fact that we're fallen. We're sinners. Well, I don't have a problem with that either. I don't see these as bad things. You can use these terms, but I see these in fact as good things. Good things because it's something we have to overcome. I don't believe I don't believe in the idea of a savior. I don't believe in the idea of salvation. I believe, I don't even believe you save yourself. I believe you overcome. Nobody saves anything. Nothing's being saved here. Something's being overcome. Something's being stepped over. Something's being leaped over. And something's being achieved for yourself. That's what I'm talking about. And when you think about this, you really realize that utopia gets in the way of true, genuine freedom. That this continued belief we have in Western culture of utopia to one degree or another, on either the left or the right, gets in the way of really achieving a world of genuine freedom. Because the nature of freedom is the nature, or rather, I should say, the nature of freedom is the capacity to be flawed, to be imperfect, to be impure, to be essentially a sinner, if you will. That what I mean by this is that to accept these flaws in yourself and in nature, that becomes the basis of genuine freedom, because it then allows you the opportunity to be able to overcome these things and become better at being yourself, at being what you've always been, and achieving your destiny, essentially, if you want to use those terms. If you want to think about mystical terms. I don't know if I should use the term destiny exactly, but, achieving what you want out of life, becoming what you were born to be, living your life to the fullest capacity. It's when you are no longer held to ridiculous ideas, when you're no longer held to these abstract moral principles, when you're no longer held to these sorts of standards, if you will, these kinds of these arbitrary standards, if you will. You can achieve genuine freedom. You can go out there and really become the best you can possibly be at whatever it is you choose to be in life. That is the nature of freedom. And utopia of any sort, whether it's religious utopia or it's secular utopia, what have you, steps upon that and prevents us from ever being able to achieve that as individuals. And so, of course, it is something that we're going to achieve as individuals. We can only achieve this as individuals. But it's when you have achieved this idea, or rather when you've gotten to this point where you don't need to be held to these sorts of arbitrary, abstract, standards that are disconnected essentially from physical reality. It's when you no longer have to deal with that you can actually become the best you can be. It's when you've gotten rid of the idea that you can make things better than you are, that you can get over the current situation. And this is ultimately what I believe as a person. And I find myself becoming utterly. There's not really a day goes by when I'm flipping on YouTube, because I do it a lot. Well, I'm not almost disgusted with the way people think about things. It's just I find myself more and more in a situation where I'm just like scratching my head and wondering what is it that people think. And it gets crazy, because if you say something politically incorrect, for example, people will pounce upon you and just go crazy when they think about this. People have such an emotional investment in some of these ideas. It's really incredible. And I just think if we just learn to get over this, we can actually end up probably having the society we all presumably want. I think it's really probably a law in nature, that is that says that for one there's another, for another there's it's one of these things where it's like the more you try to push for something, the less you get of it. It's that sort of thing. I think you can really say that's a law of nature. I think any attempt to pursue absolute perfection is never going to work, because everything essentially is a polarity. You don't have good without evil. You don't have evil without good. Everything presumes another thing. You don't have men without women. You don't have women without men. This is just simply the way things are. You just don't have one without the other. One presumes the other, essentially. That's basically, I think, the way things work. And so, when you consider all of this, when you consider all of this, you realize how much you realize how much Western culture has devolved into an illusion. Basically, we live in this mass delusion in the Western world, specifically in America, but it's probably in well, actually, I know for a fact it's in other parts of it's in Europe. Europe has gone down the way we have. So that's pretty much my thinking on that. And this is kind of in some ways, an expansion on the idea I had in my previous video that I was going to be more honest and all this kind of stuff. But this is, like I said, this is also a foundation essentially for future topics I wanted to discuss. And so, like I said, this is probably going to be an important video for like I said, for future ideas I want to discuss. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say. But anyway, just as far as the whole idea of utopia is, I hope someday we can actually abandon this concept. Let it go to the dustbin of history, because I don't think it's ever done anything to help mankind. And like I said, I do believe that to a large degree, this kind of thinking is of Christian origin, and it's really just something that's been secularized over time. So that's pretty much all I had to say, and I hope this was a good rant, a good useful discussion, and that's pretty much all. Like I said, that's pretty much all I have to say, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.